1985. This is Joe Todd, an interview with Mr. Albert Williams in Woodward, Oklahoma. Sir, where were you born?
I was born in Marlowe, Oklahoma, May the 26th, 1922.
1922. Who was your father?
My father was Albert Williams, Sr.
And your mother?
Bertha. And his parents were Joseph Williams and
What was your mother's maiden name?
Gordon.
Gordon. Where were your parents from?
Well, my father was born in Harrison, Arkansas, and my mother was born in Kansas.
When did they come to Oklahoma?
My mother's folks made the run and homesteaded in over by Blackville.
Okay, the run of 93?
Yeah. And my father, I'm not for sure when he came to Oklahoma.
Did your grandparents talk about making the run? You ever talk to them?
I've talked to my grandparents, yes.
How did they make the run? What, horseback? Or wagon?
Horseback, yes. And he, my grandfather, homestead, like I say, in Blackwell, and the people around there made it so rough on him, he had to move.
How come they made it rough on him?
Well, some people, I guess, were wanting the land that he homesteaded there.
What was his name?
T.C. Gordon.
T.C. Gordon. And when he moved, where did he move to?
They moved down to Anadarko.
And when did your parents get married?
Gosh. It must have been around 1910. 8 or 10, somewhere around there.
And what kind of work did your father do?
My father was a farmer and a grocerman.
As a little boy, what chores did you do in the farm?
Oh, I milked the cows and sloughed the hogs and gathered the eggs. We lived on a cotton farm out northwest of Marlowe. And I started a school at a little country school. And I had to walk 2.5 miles to and 2.5 miles home. I had 3 brothers and 5 sisters. One of my brothers died before I was born, but he had blood poison and died.
Were either one of your grandparents or great-grandparents in the Civil War?
I don't know. I don't remember ever talking about it.
You lived on a cotton farm. Did you chop cotton?
Oh,
Pick
yeah.
cotton?
Yeah.
How many pounds did you pick in a day?
Oh, we left there when I was pretty small, and I wasn't much, didn't get a chance to pick much.
Did he have the big dust storms down at Marlowe?
No, we could see the dark from the northwest, but we didn't have the big dust storm down there.
How come your family moved to Woodward?
My father had a brother up here, and we thought it'd be a good move for us.
Boy, 1936 would seem a dismal time to move to Woodward.
It was, sure was.
How did the Depression affect you and your family?
Oh, it was terrible. We always had food on the table, but you know, we did. That's all we knew. We didn't.
Did you have any big dust storms up here?
Just a few after we moved up here. No, nothing like they did before.
Not like the Black Sunday. How far did you go through school?
I went all the way through.
High school?
Yes.
And
I graduated at Sharon,
what year?
1940.
Did you do any work for CCC or?
No, I didn't. When I got out of school, well, they were getting ready to form this Battery A 158 Field Artillery here in Woodward. So in September, I joined that outfit.
Is that National Guard?
Yes. And we had about 70, I think around 70 that joined here. And I signed up about the 8th of September. And then we left here latter part of September and went to Fort Sill.
So that was the month they were called up, 1940.
Yeah. And they put us in 6-man tents down there. Little old wood stoves, and we'd have to hunt for wood to burn. And it was just pretty rough. And
how come they called up the National Guard?
well, Hitler was starting to taking over those little countries in Europe, and they just would call us up for a year, they said. Give us a year's training, then we'd get out. But after the 1 year, why, they decided we better stay a little longer. So I had a brother that was in the outfit, and he was first sergeant.
What was your rank?
Well, when I went in, guards, I was just private. But when on weekends, when everyone went off, well, he'd call me and tell me to go to the kitchen and work KP. And finally, the Hubert Gillen was the mess sergeant, and he said, "Al, why don't you come in the kitchen and cook?" I said, "I need a cook." And I thought, boy, that'd be great to get out of that KP. So that's what I did. I started cooking. And then the next, I believe it was April, that was in 41, we moved to Camp Barkley, Texas, at Abilene. Boy, we got down there and we had new tents and gas stoves in them. They were just beautiful. It was just like Waldorf Astoria. And we were doing a lot of training out there on hills around Abilene. And then in that summer, well, we took off and went to Louisiana for maneuvers. We were down there about 2 months on maneuvers.
Tell me about Louisiana maneuvers.
Boy, that was terrible. I'd never been there, and I just don't think I want to go back. There's a lot of mosquitoes, and the water was black, and they let us bathe in the creeks, and it's just black water, and I just didn't like it.
Were you still cooking then?
Yeah.
What kind of mess tent did you have in Louisiana?
What kind of mess
tent did you have?
Well, we had, as near as I remember, we had gas stoves. And it was just a regular old kitchen tent.
Louisiana maneuvers were 41?
41. Yes, that's when we were down there.
Okay.
I think they'd gone a year before down some of the outfits.
And you were in the 158th Artillery?
Yeah, the 45th Division.
Yeah. Did you know what John Embry? Oh, he was 180th, I think, Field Artillery. Where were you on Pearl Harbor Day?
We were Breckenridge, Texas on weekend pass. Walked into a restaurant Sunday morning, and the man there at the counter said, "Say, have you heard the news?" And I said, "No." He said, "Bomb Pearl Harbor, and you guys are supposed to report back to your outfit." Boy, we got busy and got back as quick as we could. And we didn't know what was going to happen. We thought we'd be shipping out. But we stayed there. Of course, they intensified our training, and then in early '42, I think it was April of '42, well, we moved to Fort Devens, Massachusetts. We moved the whole division back there.
Any idea why they moved you up there?
Well, just amphibious training.
Who was head of the 158?
Colonel Funk and General Middleton was the commander of the 45th Division.
Did you know him?
Not personally.
He was the one from Arizona, wasn't he?
Is that where he's from? I don't know where he's from.
No, he wasn't. I'm sorry, that was another one. So, Fort Devens, Massachusetts. And tell me about the amphibious training.
Well, it was just something we never dreamed of how we'd work off of those boats and climb down the ladders and on the smaller landing craft. And it was really interesting. And then that fall we moved to Pine Camp, New York, which is up by Watertown. And we had maneuvers all winter long, 40 below zero we were at times, and maneuvers in the snow and all kinds of training up there. And then in early '43 we moved to Camp Pickett, Virginia. And we were maneuvers in the mountains. And we just had all kinds of training. And then in June, around the 1st of June, we started loading up on the boats, ships. And we shipped out about the 6th or 7th of June. There's probably 1,000 ships, all kinds in our convoy. And it took us about 20 days to get to North Africa.
Anything happened on the way over?
No, it was a beautiful weather, just no trouble at all.
Oh, so no U-boats or anything?
No, we just we zigzag all the way over. We'd go this way a while, and then we'd go this way. They said that was to throw the Germans off. I don't know.
Okay, and you were still a cook then?
Well, we didn't do much cooking. We just went for the ride. I mean, we didn't cook on board ship. But yeah, I was a cook.
Tell me about ORAM.
Tell you about what?
ORAM?
We
North
just
Africa?
didn't get to Iran. We unloaded out not far from Iran and marched inland for several miles and stayed there a few days and loaded back up on the ships around the 1st of July. And then we talking about the people there, they were so much different than anything we'd ever seen. They all wore white sheets, they looked like, and the women just had one eye where they could see with one eye, And we were marching inland, and we stopped for rest, and these women walked by, and we have little candy or sugar cubes, you know, that carried for coffee and stuff. And we throw those out to those women, and they just actually run and fight for it. You know, some of them would be carrying babies on their back, and it was real interesting. And we'd see them washing their clothes in the creek on rocks, beating them on rocks, and that's something we'd never even dreamed about. Anyway, we didn't know where we was going. We knew we was going to we thought we was going to invade somewhere. So we took off on our ships, and the day before, they told us we was going to hit Sicily. And the biggest storm I ever saw hit us on the Mediterranean, and waves were 20 and 30 feet high, and some of those boats, they'd just go in under and come out pretty soon. And I just didn't see how in the world we could land with weather like that. Anyway, the morning of the 10th of July, it was still pretty rough waves. But I got up about 3 o'clock, and it was the most beautiful sight I'd ever seen, with the tracers, the bullets going in all directions, planes bombing around. You see those bombs going off.
So is this at Scogliti?
Yeah. And the ships shooting into shore, and it's just a beautiful sight. But it was a scary sight too.
Did you go in under fire at Scogliti?
Well, no, I didn't. The infantry went in, and then of course we were right behind them. But the first time I heard anybody shooting, we just got in there about one day and was getting ready to make camp, and then the snipers started shooting. We never did find him. Finally he quit, but then we didn't see any actual combat. Well, we saw some, we shot our guns, our artillery, but we didn't see much till we got about halfway up into Sicily, and then we saw some pretty good.
Where was the first real heavy action?
It seemed like it was around about halfway up. I can't remember the town, but they started shooting in our area, and then we smelled that smoke, and I thought, sure, or we all thought it was gas. We started running for a gas mask, but it was just smoke.
Were you under Patton at that time?
Yeah.
Did you ever see him?
Yeah, sure did. We thought he was great.
Mm-hmm. Did you go into Palermo?
Yeah, I did. It was off limits to us. And after we'd taken Sicily, well, everybody was slipping into Palermo, and so me and another kid decided we'd go in. I was wanting to get me a little Italian pistol. They had them just about the size of your hand, and I was wanting one. So we caught us right into Palermo and got off. Started down the street and looked down the street, and there come a couple of MPs. So we took off down another street, and got down to the next corner and looked down. There comes more MPs. They had us pinpointed. So they picked us up and threw us in the brig, and we just barely got to town, and so they finally got us right back to our outfit, but they court-martialed us. And I was sending most of my money home. They took 2/3 of my money and and confined us to the Batter area for 90 days or something like that. Well, that didn't matter, but the other kid was getting most of his money, so they took more from him than they did me. But I thought that's kind of strange. And then right after that, well, we invaded Salerno.
Tell me about that.
Well, before we did that, let me tell you about, we made the invasion of southern Sicily. And after we got up on the north coast, going east, why they decided we'd make an end run around and catch the Germans as they were retreating. So there was about, I know the 158 and probably 157th infantry was all that was in that group. And we made the end run, but they'd already got back. I mean, we didn't hit any Germans. They'd already pushed them back. So, and then we invaded Salerno, Italy, and the 36th Division went in first, and they caught thunder. They really got it. So the 45th then landed, and we were right up on a river. Artillery was right up on this hill, right, pretty good hill down to the river, and then that evening, well, they said that the tanks that broke through was driving in. So we had to get up, dig our foxholes on top of the hill, move our artillery pieces in position, and we shooting direct right into the trees and across the river there. And at night, you could see every once in a while why they might hit a tank or something, and you see them burning like the dickens. And so the next morning, well, we pulled back. That's the first time we'd pulled back since we'd been in combat, and it hurt us. But we pulled back next to the sea there, and went in position, and General McLean said, "This is it. We're going to stay. We're not going any further." So
was he still the artillery commander?
Artillery commander, yeah. So we finally won and got out of there.
Did you know General McLean?
Not personally.
Okay.
But anyway, getting back to the Sicily, our kitchen truck was lost. So we lived on K ration, C ration for probably a month before they could get us a new truck.
What happened to the kitchen truck?
It was, I guess, lost at sea, bringing it in, I guess. I don't know. We never did know what happened. So we got us a new truck, new equipment, probably about a month afterwards. But we was living on C ration, K ration, and all that. Then we start fixing a meal, and I said we're going to have to move out. So we'd have to load up everything, turn everything off, load up, take off down the road. And I had an old truck driver. He was real good, and he treated that truck like a baby. And I was always scared to death that he was going to get us lost. But he never did. Then, let's see, that was in September. And we went on up to Venafro. And the Germans had made a winter line up there. So that's where we spent the winter. And it started raining probably a month before we got to Veneto. And it was so muddy and just rained every day. And it was just miserable. And we got to Veneto and we pulled into a olive grove. And we had our artillery pieces set, and they were having to shoot over a pretty good mountain there. And we didn't think anything would fall in behind that mountain where we were, but they did. There's one shell fell in there and killed one man while we were there.
Or fell back?
No, it was an enemy.
Oh, yeah.
And then, let's see, we had Christmas there. And then in January, they pulled us back to around Naples and loaded us up on ships, and we landed at Anzio in the latter part of January. And that was a beautiful landing, no opposition. We took them by surprise, but then it didn't last long. And the night we landed one morning, and the next night we started out to go into position. A whole convoy of us, and German planes came over and dropped flares, and they started bombing our convoy. And there was a bomb hit right behind my kitchen truck. And the young kid cooking was right behind me, and he got a piece of shrapnel in his helmet. It didn't kill him, but he was sent back for a few days. He was all right. And you know, when we go in position there at Anzio, well, we'd dig big foxholes and big enough for 2 men to sleep in. Cover them over with dirt and wood or whatever we had to. And then that's how we slept. And we had our kitchen dug in. It was, oh, probably 10 by 10 foot hole in the ground. We went down about 4 feet through dirt, you know, and we were down below where we felt kind of safe. And they dropped a lot of anti-personnel bombs every night. They go, you hear those things coming down just all around.
What they sound like?
Oh, I can't describe it. And one night, it was moonlight night, and that old plane, you'd go real slow. So some of the guys on one of the artillery pieces, they decided they'd try to shoot him out of the air. Of course, no one ordered it, but they got her all ready and shot, but of course it didn't do any good. It just kept right on going.
What about Anzio Annie?
Yeah, I saw him. I saw old Anzio Annie. She was quite a gun, I'll tell you. Boy, you could hear that thing coming over, and it just scare you to death.
What would you do when you heard it coming?
Well, you couldn't do nothing because the time you heard it, it's already gone.
Did you hear it go off?
Oh yeah, you could hear it. You bet you could hear it.
What? How come we got stuck at Anzio? What was the deal?
Well, of course, I felt like, or a lot of us felt like, if Patton had still been our commander, why, we wouldn't have. It just felt like Mark Clark wasn't the commander that Patton was. But Patton got yanked back for slapping that kid in North Africa. And I think he was probably just trying to knock some sense into the kid. I saw an old kid go berserk one time. And he just, it was on, we were down in a kind of a gully, and the Germans were laying everything in the books in there, and this kid just went all to pieces, and they had to send him back. I think they probably sent him home. I never did see him after that.
What about the breakout at Anzio?
Well, that was,
How we managed to do that?
we just built up a lot of troops and just took off. And boy, I saw tanks, I saw dead Germans just laying everywhere up in there. And it was amazing. They had a tunnel from Rome to Anzio, and it was built way back in medieval times, I guess. I don't know when they built that tunnel. But that thing was still there. It just it caved in spots, you know. And
Why did we go into Anzio?
well, we were going to cut off those Germans that were down in that winter line. And it just didn't work out like that. Time we landed in Anzio, well, the Germans, they brought in all kinds of troops in there.
Who was the field marshal in charge of those troops? German? Kesselman?
I just can't.
Yeah. What did you do during the breakout? What were you doing? What were you doing during the breakout at Anzio?
Well, I was a mess sergeant then. We kept food for the troops. That was our responsibility, was keeping them fed.
You had to pick up a rifle? And...
Well, no, we didn't. Of course, I carried a pistol, but we never used a rifle.
And we were at Anzio, what, 120 some days?
Well, about the 22nd of January until about 23rd or 4th of May, something like that.
About 4 months.
Because we went into Rome about the 3rd or 4th of June.
At Anzio, after it drug on for 2 or 3 months, what did you do every day?
Well, we just firing our artillery, you know, over into the German sector. And
did Germans ever try a mass attack to destroy the beachhead?
They tried. They attacked it quite a bit. That's the reason we just fighting all the time. And
how come they didn't decide to pull out after a couple of months? Looks like.
Pull out who?
From Anzio, the Americans.
You mean give it up? Or go on?
Well, pull out from there and try somewhere else.
Well, I think they had too much stuff in there to pull out. They were just bringing stuff in every day, you know, getting ready for the big push.
Okay.
So then we took Rome, and we got to do a lot of sightseeing, you know. Then they pulled us back to around Naples again. Let's see, that was in the latter part of June. And we did a lot of more training, and then we landed in southern France in August. So we made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 invasions.
Tell me about Rome.
Well, it was a beautiful city.
Was it damaged in the war?
Not a whole lot. We saw,
You go through St. Peter's?
oh yeah,
Tell me about it. What did St. Peter's look like?
that was beautiful. I just can't describe it. They have a big courtyard. That's been 40 years
Yeah.
ago.
Did you get to see Pope Pius?
No.
And from Rome, where'd you go?
We went back to Naples, and we loaded back up on the ships.
Were you there when the volcano erupted?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we were. We got to go down to Naples on leave a few times, and you'd see those cinders falling, you know, all the time. Little pea-sized cinders.
Were you anywhere near Monte Cassino? The big abbey they had to blow up?
No.
So you went to southern France?
Yeah. Around Marseille, we landed. And that was real good duty down there, because we just moved so fast, they didn't have much opposition.
Yeah, when did you land in southern France?
About the 12th of August, I believe.
Oh, 40...
44. And we went clear on up into France, around Epinal. And then we spent the winter right on the Christmas, just before Christmas. I was one of the first Americans to cross over into Germany. You know, the artillery had radio operators up with them. So I volunteered to go up. I knew they was going to be going over into Germany at that particular time, and so I volunteered to go up and help carry the radios. And I got to be about the first one to get over into Germany.
How'd you cross the Rhine?
Well, this wasn't the Rhine.
Oh, okay.
This was down south there. But then we crossed the Rhine later on. We crossed it on ducks.
Where at?
Well, it was up east of Worms, somewhere up there. I can't remember exactly where it was. But it was... a lot of fun.
Worms is on the Rhine, isn't it? Is it on?
I don't believe it is. I think it's back west of the Rhine.
What did you do? I guess in Germany, I guess you're still a mess sergeant.
Yeah.
How fast were you moving at that time?
Well, when we got to that was about the time of the balls. You know, there in December, 1st of January of 45, that's when they threw everything they had at us. And I went to the hospital with French foot January the 1st, 45. And I was in the hospital about 2 months. And then I sent back the outfit. And I think we were in rest when I got back to the outfit there at Epinal.
Now, is the Siegfried line, is that in Germany or France?
It's in Germany, and that was a beautiful sight. Those pillboxes were so much cement in them, I don't know how we ever penetrated.
Do you help liberate Dachau?
Yeah, we sure did.
Tell me about Dachau.
I tell you, I saw dead people stacked on carts, just like wood stacked up. There's something to say.
Was that one of the death camps, Dachau?
Yeah, they had a big furnace there, and I guess they throw these bodies in there and burn them. I don't know.
Did you all hear about the camps, or when you first heard about them, do you believe them or what?
Well, it's hard to believe, but it's true. We saw them.
And that's down by Munich, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dachau.
Then we went on to Munich, and that's when I had enough points. I got to come home. And that was, I left the 1st of June.
So the war was over then?
Well, there's still little. Yeah, Germany had surrendered.
Yeah.
That's right.
What'd you do on VE Day?
Oh, that was the happiest day of my life, I guess. Actually, we didn't do anything. We were just all so happy.
I heard stories about the guys finding the big wine cellars, and
I tell you, we found a big schnapps warehouse. And every truck in the outfit had 55-gallon barrel of schnapps in it. But you know, they didn't get drunk. I mean, we always had it right there, and it was pretty good stuff. But we didn't get in any of the wine cellars, but we did find the schnapps warehouse.
Mm-hmm. Where was that?
I can't remember. It seemed like it was around Nuremberg.
There, were you there for the Nuremberg trials?
No.
They're not too far from Worms. It's where the Moselle flows into the Rhine. There's a great big statue, great big gigantic statue, built back in the 1870s or 1880s. Did you go anywhere near it? So when you came back to the States in June?
Left. I went back into France and caught a train to Marseille. And that train was so loaded, we just barely had room, you know, it was just boxcars. And we could lay down, and that was just like sardines. When one guy turned over with the whole car had to turn over. Anyway, we got to Marseille, and then we loaded on B-17 bombers. Is that the four-motor? Yeah. We loaded on them and went to Casablanca. And then we were there for 2 or 3 hours, and then we got on freight plane, some kind of a box car, I don't know what it was. And there was just about probably 12 soldiers on the plane. And they flew us home then.
Where'd you fly to?
To New York.
You coming fly by the Statue of Liberty?
Oh, yeah.
What was your reaction when you saw it?
Oh, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. We landed in New York about 3 o'clock. And they took us to New Jersey, to camp up in New Jersey, right across the line there. I can't remember what it was. And I never had such a good meal in all my life. They really fed us.
Was that Camp Dix, Fort Dix?
Fort Dix, I believe it was. Steaks and potatoes and milk. We hadn't had any fresh milk for months. We left in June of 43 and got home in June of 45. So it's 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
We had 511 days of combat.
In the 2 years, what sticks out in your mind most?
Oh, I guess coming home, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. When did you get back to Woodward?
We got back to Woodward, let's see, the 3rd of July. I had a sister in Tulsa, and me and a buddy of mine, we got a discharge about the 1st of July, so we went to Tulsa and stayed a couple of days before we came on to Woodward. And was here in Woodward for, oh, it's hard for me to get settled down and start to work. And I spent all my savings. Finally went to work for Hackett Auto Supply.
What did you do in VJ Day?
I know we were celebrating. I don't remember just exactly what we were. Then in 49, do you want me to go on with it?
Tell me about the Woodward tornado.
Yeah, I was here.
Tell me about that.
Me and a buddy of mine had gone out to the Oasis and eaten that evening. And we were going to the show. And we got into the show and sat down, and no, it was storming outside, and the lights kept flickering, but I didn't think anything about it. Finally, they went off, and you could hear a lot of noise outside, but I thought, well, they'd come back on in a minute. But people were running and they hollering and screaming, and so we just sat there. And finally, I found out there wasn't going to be any more show then. I walked out, and the cars that was parked right in front of the show, they might have been clear across the street. I'd parked over across the street on 9th Street there, and my car was all right. It had sand pits in it. I had to have it repainted. I didn't have any broken glass or anything. But it was a terrible sight.
What did the streets look like?
Oh, they were just full of litter and glass and cars, and it was just hard to get up and down the streets. Limbs, trees.
Did you help? What'd you do after? Did you help the people?
Yeah.
What'd you do?
We drove all over town helping people.
What's the worst thing that you experienced in a tornado?
Well, probably the worst thing was about a 10 or 11-year-old girl that they never found. No one ever claimed her. We don't know. No one knows where she came from or who she was.
How many were killed in that tornado?
It was about 110.
How long did it take Woodward to build back?
probably took him a year.
Mm-hmm. How long did it take the town to recover?
Well, it didn't take the town too long to recover. It just took a while to get things straightened up where you could operate. It was probably, I would guess electricity's off probably 2 weeks, I can't remember.
Where'd you meet your wife?
Well, my wife, I met her here in Woodward. In '49, me and a friend of mine moved to Virginia. We went back there and put in a Dairy Queen in Norfolk. And then in 1950, I got a call to report for duty. He and I had signed up in the reserve. He talked me into signing up in the reserve before we went back to Virginia, and so we got notice to report for duty in August of that 50. She's been back there a year. And we'd just gone into business, and I decided I wanted to wait till the solar business to if I could get postponement. So I asked for it, and I did. They gave me until December to report. So we sold our business, and then I came back to Woodward, and I met my wife early December 50, and then we were married in February the 10th of 51. So we didn't have a long courtship.
You go to Korea?
No, I was down Fort Sill in the Cook and Baker School. I was an instructor down there. And let's see, I reported around the 1st of December of 50. And then that was a real good duty. I was going to just make a career of it. And after we got married in February, and we'd come to Woodward every once in a while, and we was visiting with my friend one day, and he said, "Why don't you get out and let's go back to Virginia and go back and soft ice cream day." So it sounded like a pretty good deal. So I got out September of 51. So that's what we did. We went back to Winchester, Virginia this time. Put in it was a tasty freeze we went into this time. And my wife, she was born and raised at Mutual. And she just couldn't breathe back there, those high trees. And so she wanted to come home. So we sold out in 53 and moved back to Woodward.
And what have you done since then?
I bought the Pollyanna Cafe 53, and I've been there ever since. But
where's that located?
right downtown, 902 Main Street. But I have I run for city commission in about 64, I believe, and won. And I served 3 years, and then I run again and won the second term. And I was mayor for 1 year. then I got out of it. I decided I didn't want any more of it.
What's the most interesting thing you did while you were mayor of Woodward?
Well, I tell you what, we passed the 1 cent sales tax while I was mayor.
What was the money used for?
For operating business, city.
Yeah. When were you mayor of Woodward?
It seemed like it's about 1967. I can't remember exactly.
Sounds pretty good. Anything else? Have we left anything out?
I don't think so. I think that about covered it.
Yeah. Well,
I have 5 children.
you do.
Yeah. My oldest one's 32 and my youngest is 21. He's the youngest is still in school at Stillwater. And 3 graduated at Stillwater, OSU. And this last one, he's still in there.
Good. Okay, thank you.
In there.
Where were they born, your parents?
Well, my father was born 1890.
Where?
I believe I don't know whether it was Iowa or Ohio. See, great-grandfather went to Iowa. Then he come up in here by Pratt, Kansas. That's on my daddy's side.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my mother's family done the same thing.
Where was your mother born?
I believe at Mormon.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't right sure. But I believe
Do you have any stories of your ancestors coming over from Europe on the boat?
Not really of their coming over. I know who they are, the descents from my great-grandparents from over there.
Any of your grandparents or great-grandparents in the Civil War?
I don't know whether they was in the Civil War or not. Like I say, they all made the rush back there before they opened Oklahoma land up. They sat right up here at Pratt, Kansas.
They made the run.
And I think they was boomers ooners, to be exact about it, because see, they opened it up in 1903, but they officially had to run in, what was it, some years later or something like that.
Well, they had one run. The first one was in '89.
Yeah, well, that's what I say is,
And then they had the run up here in '93.
and like I say, I think they set their stakes in '93.
Okay.
I think that's what the deal was. And then, of course, we become a state in 1970.
Yeah. What kind of work did your father do?
He was a farmer. He was a farmer. I grew up on the farm. Spent 21 years and a piece on the farm, doing farm labor, whatever.
Tell me about the chores on the farm when you were a kid.
Oh, milking cows, chopping wood, gathering wood, driving horses, like I say, riding, driving.
You do much plowing?